Thank the member and recognize the member from Victoria Beacon Hill.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and I rise to speak to Bill 6, the Provincial Capital Commission Dissolution Act, and I as well rise as the member for Victoria Beacon Hill to speak against this bill, and I want to talk a little bit about the concerns and the questions that this bill brings forward. And I want to start, because I think it's important to start at the beginning, which was around the establishment of the Provincial Capital Commission. I think has been said by my colleague, the Provincial Capital Commission was actually put in place in 1956 by W.A.C. Bennett, the Premier at the time, who decided that the capital city of our thriving province, as he described it, deserved to become the focus of beautification and enhancement. And I think it's interesting to take a look at the irony of the forming of the Provincial Capital Commission by a Premier who understood the importance of a capital city to our entire province. That Victoria isn't important simply as a city, it's important to all of the people of British Columbia, not simply the residents of Victoria, but in fact all the people of British Columbia as the capital city. And I think given the current Premier's comments about Victoria and the sick culture that she sees here and her lack of interest in attending here in Victoria, I think it is, as I said, not without irony that we're sitting here today after a Premier in the 50s saw the vision of having a capital commission to today where we have a Premier who is getting rid of the Provincial Capital Commission. It started off with the 4 core municipalities in our area, which are Esquimalt, Oak Bay, Saanich, and Victoria, and then was expanded to include the Saanich Peninsula and all the western communities. And I also think it's important to mention, and it's interesting as someone who's grown up in Victoria, who's lived here since I was 5, and in James Bay in this community since I was 5 years old. The very first project that the Provincial Capital Commission ever took on was in 1957, the year I was born, and it was to improve the Dallas Road walkways. And I'm sure, yes, the member is doing his math across the way. When you're a provincial politician, there are no secrets about your age, and I'm quite proud to be in my 50s. But I think it's interesting that their first project was the Dallas Road walkways. And I think probably members on both sides of this House, members when they're here in Victoria staying while the legislature is sitting, probably have walked along Dallas Road. It is one of those icons in our community. It is one of those areas that anyone who both lives in the neighbourhood and comes to visit Victoria talks about the opportunity to walk along the waterfront on Dallas Road. So I think it's interesting to note that the Provincial Capital Commission did that work as their very first project in 1957. I also think it's interesting to look at the fact that it cost $65,000 to do all of the walkway. And since then, the Provincial Capital Commission now, when we're more than 50 years later, has put over $19 million into beautifying the capital city, into projects for various improvements, for heritage, for history, and protected those. So I think it's important as we look at getting rid of something that we take a look at why it was put in place, why it was there in the first place. And when we look at the historical significance of buildings, when we take a look at our heritage, when we take a look at natural significance, that really was the reason the Provincial Capital Commission was in place, was to acknowledge that your capital city doesn't belong simply to the residents of Victoria. Your capital city belongs to the entire province, to the people of British Columbia. Just as, Honourable Speaker, this building belongs to the people of British Columbia, so do all of the things and the assets that belong in the capital city. And that really was the role that the Provincial Capital Commission played so well. My colleague before me mentioned St. Anne's Academy, and I think probably for many of us that's one of the icons of the Provincial Capital Commission. Beautiful grounds, beautiful heritage building that was protected by the Provincial Capital Commission at the time. And I think none of us can imagine that not being there as part of our history of, as I said earlier, not simply the capital region, but all of British Columbia. And also part of the vision of the Provincial Capital Commission was to make sure that it celebrated British Columbia and provided supports for the capital celebrating British Columbia. So I just find it interesting, Honourable Speaker, when you take a look at that history, When you take a look at the 1950s and a premier who felt that it was valuable and important to have a capital commission in place, why we would see the government of today taking a look at dissolving something so important and so valuable, and something that's also there across the country. Provincial capital commissions are not something unique to British Columbia. Provincial capital commissions are there in almost every province across our country. Again, because there's the recognition that there is something special about a capital city that needs to be shared with all of British Columbia. When I first heard of the Provincial Capital Commission being dissolved and had people in my community raising their issues and raising their concerns, one of the first things that I asked, and certainly I know some of the city councillors in Victoria had asked for, was where was the business plan? Because you'd imagine, Honourable Speaker, that if you're looking at dissolving a Crown corporation, you're looking at dissolving something that's been in place for such a long period of time, that your first step would be a business plan that would give the rationale, that would give an explanation, that would talk about why that was the direction that was being taken. Well, it's interesting, Honourable Speaker, that there is no business plan. There is no business plan that talks about why the Provincial Capital Commission is being dissolved, and why, and I heard the minister in her remarks when she brought this bill in saying the government knows it can take on the Provincial Capital Commission duties. Well, that may be true, but we don't know that, Honourable Speaker, because there is no business plan that shows that points out the rationale and the argument and the facts around why this is going to make a difference and why the duties can continue to be done within government. And that's another very important point that I just want to take a minute to speak to, Honourable Speaker, which is all of the activities of the Provincial Capital Commission and what's going to happen to those activities. The Provincial Capital Commission was self-sustaining. Government says that they're going to save $1 million. That this will be, it's part of the core review. As we all know, the core review is looking for efficiencies across government, and the government's rationale is that $1 million will be saved by moving the Provincial Capital Commission within government. Well, if that's accurate, Honourable Speaker, I'm curious where the money is for the programs and services that are being provided now for the Provincial Capital Commission. If $1 million is going to be saved and the Provincial Capital Commission was self-sustaining, where are the dollars to provide the programs and services and the maintenance of the heritage buildings and the looking after of the land that is already there? I reviewed the budget, the provincial budget, Honourable Speaker, and I certainly didn't see anything in the budget that said providing programs and services that were formerly with the Provincial Capital Commission. And so I think that's a big, outstanding question from my perspective, Honourable Speaker, is what exactly is going to happen to those programs and services? What exactly is going to happen? I think the other piece that is worrisome is the issue of local voice and local control. I think the strength of the Provincial Capital Commission was that it had provincial representation, recognizing, as I was saying earlier, that the capital belongs to the province, not simply the people of Victoria. But it also acknowledged that the capital city is Victoria. And so it also had representatives from City Council, local representatives sitting on the Provincial Capital Commission. And that really provided a very valuable voice to be able to assist with decision-making, to be able to build partnerships. We've seen, and my colleague who spoke before me talked about some of the swaps that have been made, some of the land swaps that have been made. And there's been some real value in those land swaps. There's been some good work done where they've been able to stay in public hands, where you've been able to benefit the community and benefit the Provincial Capital Commission. There's been some very good work done. But that kind of work, Honourable Speaker, doesn't occur without building those relationships. That kind of work certainly doesn't occur if you shut out local voice, if you don't assist the opportunity for those voices to be heard, because if you're looking at doing planning in the capital city, the people involved in that planning often are mayor and council. Those are often the individuals who are involved in assisting the local First Nations, involved in assisting looking at their own projects and sitting around the Provincial Capital Commission and saying, how can we maximize the local projects and the local work that we're doing? And I'm very concerned that in eliminating the Provincial Capital Commission, we lose an opportunity. We lose an opportunity, Honourable Speaker, to be able to make sure that we're getting the best use out of those public lands that we have. Lands that are valuable, lands that you don't get back once they're gone, lands that belong to the people of this province and are held in the capital city. So I think it's very tough to lose that local control and that local voice and still build that relationship and still build those decisions and make the right decisions for the land. I want to take just a minute to talk about the Belleville terminal because it is a critical economic driver in the city of Victoria, a critical driver for tourism, for not only the city of Victoria, but for all of Vancouver Island, and in fact for bringing people here to British Columbia. And it is an investment and an area that needs work and that has not received any attention over the last number of years. And the Belleville terminal, through this bill and through this act, will be moved into the Ministry of Transportation. And, you know, I certainly hope, and I'm always an optimist, I hope that this means that the Belleville terminal will go to a priority list in the Ministry of Transportation and won't sit idle and not get paid attention to. But there's an understandable concern. There are very few cities across this country, in fact across North America, where you have ferries coming in to your capital city right into the downtown. In most cities, when you're looking at ferry terminals, when you're looking, even if you look at the provincial ferries here, they're out of town and they bring visitors in. We have a jewel in Victoria where we have two ferries, the Coho and the Clipper, that bring people from the United States here right into downtown, that come into that beautiful harbor and have people delivered right to downtown, where they bring their resources, where they spend money, where they support our local businesses, where they provide economic activity for the city of Victoria. And again, both great businesses who have provided huge support to the city of Victoria and who work in great partnership with the city of Victoria to provide that. But I'm not sure, Honourable Speaker, if anybody on the other side of the House has taken either of those ferries over the last number of years and seen the kind of security terminal that you have to go through since 9/11 that has shifted on those ferries. It's an embarrassment, and I think everyone would say that it was an embarrassment. It is not worthy of the kinds of good businesses that they run and the good work that we do coming here to Victoria. You go through trailers, they're unheated, you often have lineups, and the businesses have done everything they can, and the city's done everything they can to try and tidy those up, to try and make sure that they're as quickly as possible and moving visitors through, and you get a great service with the individuals who work there. They provide wonderful opportunities, but it needs upgrading. It needs upgrading to make sure that we meet the security needs that are there, and it needs upgrading to provide a better customer service for people coming to Canada, their first glimpse of Canada as they come through. So that's work I would certainly hope, Honourable Speaker, as we look at the transfer of Belleville Terminal over to the Ministry of Transportation, that I hope won't get lost, that I hope in fact will rise to the top as a critical project that needs to be taken on and needs to be looked at here in British Columbia and here in Victoria and the capital city, because I think there are opportunities missed and opportunities lost if we don't get that work done. So that's a piece that I'll be looking for. I just want to touch for a moment as well on the programs and the sponsorships that are done by the Provincial Capital Commission, because again, I heard the minister and I've seen the comments in the press where the minister has said that government will ensure that those projects get covered off. Government will ensure that those projects are taken care of. that they're not going to go by the wayside, that government will provide them. So I just want to read a list, Honourable Speaker, of a few of the events that happened that were sponsored by the Provincial Capital Commission, the very organization that's going to disappear with the passing of this bill. Earth Day Festival. I think, again, anyone who lives in Greater Victoria in the Capital Region has been to Earth Festival over at St. Anne's Academy. Again, a wonderful opportunity that brings together musicians, that brings together artists, that brings together local businesses, that brings together community groups. Last year during the election, for example, we had a panel discussion with members from all different political parties to have an opportunity to talk about our priorities when it came to climate change and to address the issues around protecting the planet. Very fitting for Earth Day, but a wonderful festival that again is sponsored by the Provincial Capital Commission. Is something that is supported by the Provincial Capital Commission. Swiftsure, the yacht race for Victoria. Again, anybody who has lived in Victoria or visited Victoria knows that Swiftsure is something that is a given in Victoria, and again is supported by the Provincial Capital Commission. One of the areas that they spent a fair bit of time in partnership with First Nations in this area is Aboriginal Day in our capital city. That's again something that's been sponsored by the Provincial Capital Commission. I've attended many wonderful events that have occurred, again, often using St. Anne's Academy, where they have the theatre in the back of the academy, and they've provided opportunities for us to learn about our First Nations culture, to respect our First Nations culture. What will happen with this bill to Aboriginal Day and the sponsorship that's provided and supported by the Capital Commission? Canada Day. Again, I think most people would expect that their capital city is going to be part of Canada Day and would have a recognition, and that's again something where the Provincial Capital Commission provided support for that kind of event. The Buskers Festival. I'm not sure if any members visited Victoria during the summer and saw the Buskers Festival going on in Victoria, but again, each of these festivals are extraordinary in themselves, but they also bring economic activity to the area. They also increase economic growth in Victoria. Symphony Splash, another example. So this is a long list of events that take place that are sponsored by the Provincial Capital Commission. BC Day. I don't think it'd be any surprise that people would expect that the capital city on BC Day would be celebrating, and that would be supported by the Provincial Capital Commission. Dragon Boat Festival. It's another event. I think, you know, those people who take a look at the Provincial Capital Commission and perhaps have wondered, well, maybe it really doesn't make a difference. I'm not really sure why it's in place. I'm not really sure why it's there. I think can take a long look at these festivals along with all of the protection of the heritage and history of our capital city and know that the Provincial Capital Commission has an impact in Victoria, has an impact on the life, both economic and social, of Victoria. The Classic Boat Festival, the Victoria Fringe Theatre Festival, Tidings of Comfort and Joy Festival, a music, again, a wonderful music festival that's held through December in the chapel at St. Anne's. So again, that's just a list of the kind of activities that the Provincial Capital Commission has been doing that I wonder, again, when I see no budget put aside for those activities. I hear the words from the minister and the government that they're going to look after them, but I don't see any specifics that give me comfort. One of the other programs that I just wanted to touch on before I wrap up, Honourable Speaker, is the Capital for Kids program. And this is a program that was begun by the Provincial Capital Commission to bring children from all over British Columbia to their capital city to learn about their capital city. And so whether it's northern British Columbia, whether it's our coast, whether it's the Kootenays or northern part of our island, every year we see 38,000 young British Columbians come to the capital city for programs to experience the capital. And I've had the opportunity over a number of years to attend their events and visit them in the Mungo Martin House, which is right at the foot of the museum. And to see the young people, the day that I dropped in 2 years ago, they were learning about First Nations again and our history. And what an extraordinary experience for children, many of them who had never been out of their community. This was their first big trip to a big city from small town British Columbia, and to learn about their capital and to learn about the history of their capital. And what a valuable opportunity for those young people. Again, this is a program that is important, that is critical, and that I think we need to have assurances, more than simply words, but assurances that with the Provincial Capital Commission disappearing, unfortunately, with this government's direction, what is going to happen to those programs and services. So I think in closing, Honourable Speaker, I just want to say that I will be voting against this bill. I do believe that the bill leaves a number of questions unanswered for people in my area and people in the region and people across British Columbia. What is the kind of protection that's going to be there for the existing sites, for the heritage sites, for the historical sites? I've had no assurances or no specifics around what kind of protection will be there. What land is going to be sold? I'm very concerned about losing the opportunity to have that land stay in public hands. I'm very worried about the fact that it may be sold off for one-time resources to help the government balance their budget. And once that happens, that land and that history and that heritage is gone forever. And one of the great strengths of the Provincial Capital Commission was to assure people in our region that we would be protecting that history. And so I'm very concerned about the selling off of that land and what could happen to those lands and to those dollars. As I said, short-sighted to think that we could sell it and help a budget 1 year and then have the money gone for good. And I think the last piece that I just want to mention is the local voice and local control for the capital city and where that voice will go now. Where will that planning occur? Where will the opportunities and the conversations happen if there is a land swap to be had, or if there is work that needs to be done on projects, or new proposals that come up in the capital city? Where will that discussion go for our local mayor and council? Where will the discussion go for our local citizens to ensure that kind of development is done in partnership with the city? And I think the very last thing is just respect. I think it's respect, as I said, as I started, Honourable Speaker, respect for the capital city being the city for all British Columbians, not simply being for the people of Victoria, not simply here for the people who live here, but in fact here as part of our history, as part of our past and part of our future as a capital city. And where is the recognition and support for the capital city from this government? I think it's pretty clear it's not here with this bill coming forward, Honourable Speaker, and that's why I'll be speaking against it. Thank you.